Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. This time we'll be tackling the Dread Isle banner. You might be wondering, why is this banner review so late? Well, I'm gonna put it this simple. Right now is exam time. I'm giving exam to my own people in my class of Kendo. And at the same time I'm taking exam in electromechanic. I failed the machining exam last week as well, which I was planning on tackling this banner maybe on Friday, but considering I failed that exam, I kind of felt in a horrible mood, especially considering I failed it for the dumbest thing. Because I had one measure under that was too big, essentially. The one measure was 10,000th of an inch too big, and because of that, my 100% went down to 50. Everything else was flawless. Yep, that's right. I completely failed an exam because of one measure. This class is extremely unforgiving. I'll just say that much. It's, oh boy. So yeah. I just felt like complete garbage. I actually canceled the weekend stream I typically do, purely because of this. I genuinely just did not want to do anything in my weekend, and I'm sorry about that. It's just... I feel better now, though, so, you know. But, yeah, I was actually not planning on working on a video at all in the weekend, but then I kind of realized I have an exam today. And in electronic, don't worry, this should be a breeze. Then I have my redo from the machining exam. I have the formative before the exam, actually. I have to do a second formative for no reason, even though the teacher knows I'm way beyond needing help at this point. Whatever. Gotta waste my time on that one, but... I have that tomorrow, and then I have the exam on Thursday, and I will have zero energy whatsoever to work on a video on either Wednesday or Thursday, so today is kind of the last day, especially with the Legendary Banner trailer coming out tonight, I'd say. Yeah, that's the main reason I really wanted to work on this. So, yeah. But, yeah, another thing, before I start. The Sacred Seal tier list will become a bi-monthly thing, because there's no point in me covering seals every month. There's just not enough content to cover, and I feel like I'm just wasting people's time. So I'll just put it in every 2 months, when I have 6 seals to cover instead of 3. As far as GHB Tempestral tier lists characters are going to be concerned, I'm gonna put it this way. I'm going to make it monthly, and it's going to be typically on the second part of the month that I'm going to be covering those characters. Reason being, if it's only one character, especially with the way GHB Tempestral tier lists are, it's just going to be me talking about a character and why he's underwhelming. The video is going to be like 10 minutes. It's just going to be boring. Like for E, for example, what do you want me to say that hasn't been told before? It's literally Cormag like again. And Cormag was like another thing, but again. Like, what the hell? There's nothing to mention here. That's just how the characters are. And so, unless a GHB Tempestral character is catching my eyes because of how good he or she is, I'm just going to make it a monthly thing. Like, if something as good as Brunia comes out, I'm going to cover it quick, my dude. But it's typically going to be S tier or higher that I'm going to be doing this for. So like Itsuki would be one, Brunia would be one, Jamke would be one. Units that are really good and should not be sacrificed for nothing is typically what I bust my ass to release a video for earlier than usual. As for the next Tempestral GHB tier list update, it's most likely going to be not with the next banner, but the banner after. Essentially, I'm gonna have to cover 3 characters. The reason behind this is just, if right now there's nothing to talk about, and the next banner I have no clue what it's going to be, but I doubt it's going to be something too amazing. If it's something amazing, sure, I'll cover it. That's just how it is. But if there's not much to say, then there's just not much to say. This would actually help me also with time. I won't struggle too much with time after the exams though, because electronic will most likely be done, which means I have 3 classes of electronic that I can just not go to if I pass it. And machining, well, I'm gonna be more or less done after this. So that's not bad. It's just, when you're in a time crunch where you're giving your own exams to people and you're also receiving exams, it's a nightmare for me to work on anything. And that's if I have the motivation to work on stuff. But I think that's enough of me talking about myself. Let's talk about the banner. That's why you people are here, eh? And so, let's start with Fiora. Now, Fiora is not a bad unit. It's just, she's a lance flyer. Lance flyers are kind of screwed, and I do find it hilarious the fact that we're not getting 1 but 2 lance flyers with this banner. It's kind of depressing, really. As far as Guard Lance is concerned, cool, it's in the pool, but it's gonna be locked to 5-star, so not exactly going to be a weapon a whole lot of people are going to use. And there's honestly not that many people that can use it, because as far as Lance unit that typically can use guard weapons, or guard weapons in general, the main characters that can use those are infantry units. Yeah, Lance infantry units don't really have a whole lot to the pool, do they? I think the last one was like, what, Ephraim? Who's not even in the pool? The last character that was added to the pool, who was it? Shiro? Jesus. I think it actually was Shiro. For God's sake. So, yeah, Guard Lance is a bit iffy. I can see Donald using it somewhat decently. And maybe Lucina, but why would you use Brave Lucina without Garrus Kogel? You know? It's just kind of dumb. And that makes Guard Lance a bit iffy overall to use. Because most units that can use it can also use Special Fighter. So what's the point? It's overall kind of not amazing, is the problem. But, well, that's just kind of what it is. The sword variation of this weapon was definitely the best by far. And as far as axe are concerned, we literally have a Tempestral unit giving it, so yeah. As for Pegasus Flight, the way this skill works is essentially you need to have 7 more speed than the enemy, and then on top of this, you need to have more res than them, because this does not work the other way around. I actually had to someone test it. If you have less res than the enemy, it doesn't work, despite the fact that difference would basically go both ways. But the way they slapped down the description so it would actually work after to just be like, yeah, no, it's not this, it's this. It was just... Guys, please. Please, can you just write a description without it looking absolutely awkward to read? Just make it equal to 50% of the of units res minus foes res. That's it. That's all you had to say. Why do you have to use words like difference, which are words that are far too vague? I don't know. It just feels kind of silly to me. It's good for a specific set of units, but the problem is, one of the units that can use this is Est. If Est can use this, what in the heck do you think that this character can do? A speed plus Est hits 33 speed, plus 10, 37, buff pushes that to 43. You know. It's not ideal, mind you, but it's pretty decent. Still, I'd say Fiora has one of the best stat line for it, but there is a character that has a slightly better stat line and is also a free unit. And that unit is Sigrun. Yeah, as you can see, their stat lines are basically the same. 1 more speed, but 3 less def, and 2 more res. Yeah, the difference is just not really existing. The fact is, Fiora's res is a bit overkill, whereas her def is, well, to put it bluntly, not really good enough. And that's kind of the biggest problem here. Though, I'm gonna be honest, they're basically functioning the same, it's just that Fiora costs over 2,000 orbs, whereas Sigrun cost grails. I don't know. I would probably gravitate around Sigrun if I were to pick, but neither of them are really good, so yeah. Especially when you have Tsubasa next to those two. Tsubasa is a broken unit. Now, her speed is really good and works really good with the weapon. You'd want to go Res Plus also purely for Pegasus Flight. Pegasus Flight is the first B skill any Flyers has gotten that actually allows them to do better in combat as a B skill. Because every skill, Flyer exclusive skills, anyway, tends to only be good for positioning. Aerobatics, air forces, or air guidance, whatever it's called. Air orders, there we go. Ground orders, all of these skills are there for movement. This is the first non-movement skill. And Flyers were already the second best movement type of the game. The best being infantry by far. So, Jesus Christ. That's something. And as far as her res is concerned, 43 res is not amazing, but it's enough for her to at least gain some damage. And that alone is insane, because her damage was already good, and now you're slapping even more damage on top of it. The fact of the matter is, her attack is pretty deceptive. If you have a buff, you're at 58 attack. If someone of your party has acted, you are at 64 attack on initiation. And you get Desperation. That's without an A slot, that's without a Seal slot, that's without a B slot. In other words, if Pegasus Flight is up, and this is especially good if you have someone like Guntra blessing her, so she gets an extra 4 res. If you get the 7 damage, the minus 7 def from Pegasus Flight, the weapon effect is effective. You use Death Blow, you use Sturdy Blow 2 as the seal. You're looking at 52, 58 with buff, 64 with the weapon, 72 with Death Blow, 79 with the B slot, 83 attack with Sturdy Blow. Do you kind of see where I'm going with this? And guess what? If you're dealing with something that you don't have enough speed to do anything against, that's fine. You still have like 76 attack. And typically enough speed to prevent repel or such skills from lowering your damage too much. So yeah, overall it's a very, very good unit and can actually use Pegasus Flight insanely well, since it's most likely going to be used mostly against armors. Sophist is the main danger, and in some cases it's better to use Brash Assault, because you can actually set it up with Sturdy Impact and just not moving anyone in your party, so you have to take a hit. So you can actually set up Brash Assault with Tsubasa, and with Brash Assault you can actually double Sophist and kill her off even if you're unmerged and she's merged to +10. Tsubasa is insane, okay? But yeah, if you don't like Brash Assault and the fact that you basically have to take a hit with Sturdy Impact, then yes, you can actually just absolutely run Pegasus Flight, and I'd say she's one of the best users of it. As far as builds are concerned, this should be pretty simple. Attack Def Bond twice. It basically allows you to hit 48 Def, 47 Res, as well as 48 Speed, and 66 Attack. This is really good to combo into Slaying Lance, because you can combo this into Brave Lucina, take a hit, proc Bonfire, and therefore get an extra 24 damage. I think it's pretty obvious. It's overall decent, but I would definitely not spend my ores on this. Moving on to Raph. Now Raph, oh boy. Outside of the fact that his face looks absolutely off, seriously, to me Raph has always been someone that feels very fierce. Yeah, fierce? It's where I can speak, but not really too well right now. And his face is just not that. It looks really off. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So this is going to be our demote, and he's the 4-star focus. As I've said last time, 4-star focus are insane. To put it this way, I believe you have something like 16% chance of pulling him right now. Every green you pull. Yeah. It's pretty ridiculous. I've heard of people actually +10ing him in like 300 orbs. I've heard of people +10ing him in 200 orbs. I've heard of people +10ing him in 500 orbs. It's literally a fourth of the price at worst, at least from what I've seen or heard. It's literally a fourth, sorry, of the price. Well, a fourth to a fifth of the price to +10 a 4-star focus. That's how insane the rates are. So, yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. As far as kits are concerned, he doesn't really have a whole lot to his name, but Death Smoke being in the pool is pretty good. I guess all we have left is Res Smoke now, and I do feel like people who actually killed off Brunir for Res Smoke are going to just feel absolutely stupid, because at this rate I would not be surprised to get it either next banner or the one after. Yeah. So Raph is actually not bad. Raph, it has probably the best stat line of any vocab of this game. Actually, not probably, he does have the best stat line overall. I would say, ideally, losing 2 def, 2 res into attack, but, you know, that's about as much as I could just move around and feel comfortable doing so. His HP is at a comfortable number to set up Desperation. His Def and Res are both pretty good, and at higher merges can actually really work with Close Counter. And so that gives him a lot of options. Overall, though, he's still a Bocav. Bocavs don't really have a whole lot to their names. They have a new skill. Yeah. Well, more on that later. It's pretty stupid. But yeah, it's basically just a stat stick. And he's green, as are every free-to-play Cav, it seems. My god. Not a single blue bow is in the pool as a 4-star. Not a single red bow is in the pool as a 4-star. And then you go in like green bow, and there's like 2 already. Maybe 3? No, I think there's only 2. It's pretty bad, honestly. He is a better Sue, though. I suppose you could point that out. Moving on to the comparison. Comparing this to Python, because, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Overall, more HP, more attack, same speed, more res, and less def. Now, you have to understand, Python is decent, but Raph is kind of just a slightly better version of this, because 1 more point of attack is helpful for Brave Bow. More res in general is actually pretty helpful. Allows you to tank dragons if you have to take a hit, which is pretty helpful. And having less def, while that's kind of a bad thing, does not really matter all that much because you have just so much HP, so Desperation is so easy to set up. Regardless, you'll be able to just take a hit, and that's that. Now the reason why Claude is here is just, if you're going to go into 5-star exclusive units, there's no reason to pick anything but Claude right now. He essentially has a very easy to fulfill condition. In case you don't know what the condition is, it's essentially, and I believe he makes you lose 5 across the board for this. He just needs to have either a total of 10 buff on himself, or the enemy has 10 penalty on themselves, or more, obviously. So yeah, very easy to set up. Just have an own Cav and there you go, you get free stats for nothing. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Claude is obviously wiping the floor with the 2 of them, but that's because he has a pref. In general, I feel like if you're going to do 4-star exclusive, or sorry, 4-star focus that also have 5-star focus for no reason. Sorry. No, but seriously, just remove them from the 5-star focus, please. You'd be doing like yourself a service by making Banner have better odds of getting the focus, and also you'd be able to have a color that's basically a safe bet not to get a 5-star on. Well, safe in quotation, you still have a good shot at getting screwed, but it's literally off the chance, which is pretty good. Or, well, a bit less than off in certain cases, especially if you're red, because you would lose 2.5% chance of getting a 5-star instead of the total of, I believe, 5.8%. Yeah. Red is pretty cursed right now, and blue is also kind of cursed, so, yeah. I believe there was no red on this banner, by the way, purely because we got 2 reds on the genealogy banner with Larce and Shannon. Honestly, they could have just not put Shannon in the game and just wait later and make him better, but, oh well. Yeah, I'm saying this as a fan of Shannon, by the way. Because, my god, Shannon was mistreated. But, yeah. Overall, I'd say Raph is really good. If you want a bow Cav, I would definitely go for Raph. because his stat line is just overall really solid and very easy to work with. He also has enough res that life and death does not screw you over to a terrible amount. Whereas Python running life and death will typically get him killed too easily from dragons, which overall gives him more offense and just overall more options. I believe he can hit somewhere similar to what Gemkey hits in terms of stat. I think he will only have one less attack, and as far as speed is concerned, he just has more. Like, basically one less attack, one more speed. If you get an attack plus wrath, of course. And this is on a horse with a much better stat line as far as bulk is concerned, so not bad at all. Color is the only issue here, but you know, and the fact that he's a calf, so you can't use something like Special Spiral. It is what it is, though. As far as builds are concerned, these are the two I came up with. The set on the right is a Slaying Bow set with Heavy Blade 4. The reason you want Heavy Blade 4 is so you can actually have even Def and Res. And also because, well, if you go the other way around, it doesn't matter. Since you can't use Sturdy Impact or Mirror Impact being a horse, because of course horses cannot get anything awfully decent for some reason. Honestly, Sturdy Impact could have been available to everything but armored units, and that would have been perfect. I don't understand why they didn't do this. Anyway, so overall, if you wanted to use Sturdy Impact, you'd be stuck with Sturdy Blow 2. And so, using Heavy Blade 4 will give you overall more damage. This also allows you, with low attack speed, to have 48 speed. Overall, you'd have 40 def, 40 res, 48 speed, and your attack would be roughly 62. And with Heavy Blade, 67. But that 5 damage is not affected by Combat Triangle. Overall, it's not bad. And because you'd have only 2 cooldown, well, you could just get hit, proc. This allows you to have that extra touch that you need to kill with. As for the set on the left, this is a Brave Bow set. It's basically what I would run were I to run him. Though, honestly, I've been struggling between using Life and Death or not using Life and Death. At the end of the day, you can use either of them. Life and Death and Swift Sparrow 3 will do the same thing. The reason why you want Threatened skills typically on Brave Bow is because that's literally 5 damage per hit, and it's very easy to set up on anything that's not a mage. Which does help, believe me, it does help. I've been using Threatened Death on Gemkey since literally his release. And I've been using Threatened Death way before that even, when George was the bow unit I was using. So yeah, it's overall really good. And now moving on to the units that actually have a whole lot to talk about. Here comes Nils. Now, before talking about the unit itself, I want to talk about the absolute garbage that even Pulse Tie is. And also, I want to explain how the skill works, because they don't actually explain how the skill works. So, at start of even turns, if foe with the lowest HP has its special ready, and unit's HP is over that foe's HP plus 1, inflict special cooldown count plus 2, which basically kicks them out of having their special ready on that foe. Now, this is meant to counter Special Spiral user that have really low count specials, mostly like Alphonse and Egren, I guess, in some cases. It's meant to counter Ophelia, And that's basically the main ones, the main culprits. It's also meant to counter infantry pulse teams. But let me just explain where I feel like they screwed up on. But also what part they did not mention. So, okay. You know the part where they say, if foe with the lowest HP has its special ready? Yeah, that's not exactly correct. Or rather, it's not the whole truth. If the lowest HP on the enemy's team does not have a special ready, this special will just ignore that character and move on to the next. Okay? So, for example, if you have a character with 45 HP, a character with 46 HP, and a character with 47 HP, but the guy with the 47 HP has its special ready, while the other two don't, even pulse tie will affect the 47 HP character and not the not just completely do nothing, because the 46 and 45 HP characters have no special ready. Yeah. It's, I have no idea why that's just not explained. But that's just not explained. I found that out on the wiki, and Gamepedia tends to be absolutely correct about what they're saying. So, yeah. That's a yikes. It makes the skill better, though, considering it has 4 restriction, for God's sake. It actually kind of just removes one of the restriction doing so. It only works on even turns. It requires you to have more health than the enemy. It requires them to have a special ready. Like, my God. I believe it was, yeah, it's even turn. Foe with lowest HP, your HP needs to be higher. It's just overall just a mess. Overall, it's pretty decent, but the thing is, oh yeah, the fort restriction. Oh yes. The fort restriction is the fact that this is only on infantry units and cav units. I have no idea why you would want this skill on the cav units, but I feel like their entire idea was like, oh man, dude, cavs don't have enough skill and people are kind of getting angry about it. Oh, just give it this skill, whatever. But sir, this skill is fucking useless on them. They don't have support unit outside of Kaden. Screw it. Alright. No, but seriously. The only unit that can use even pulse tie, that is a cav unit, that can use it somewhat decently is Kaden. Because Kaden is not meant to fight, he's meant to support. This is mostly good on support unit because if you're not using a support unit, you typically don't have enough HP or cannot just invest in HP for the skill to work. And you know what's the worst part? The 2 characters that could really abuse this skill cannot use it. Bright Fjorm and Aversa are flyers. Flyers cannot use this skill. What? It's so awkward. Overall, definitely not exactly a skill I would just be pulling for. And if your Nails is HP minus, you're screwed. Just give that to Sylvia instead. In general, Sylvia would be a better choice, though. Though the problem with Sylvia is that she needs Safeguard to truly function as a bulky unit, which requires killing her daughter, which her daughter actually looks pretty, which, yeah, I would not kill her, personally. But maybe we'll get Safeguard in the pool one day. Yeah, probably not. As for Frost Breath, it's literally a power creep version of Ikami. If you don't know what Ikami does, it's quite simple. whoever is the closest to her within 4 space would basically lose 4 across the board. So at the start of turn, it actually does this. And then once you dance something, it does it again. This is how effects like Frost Breath should work. Or, you know, Huror or Huther or however the fuck it's pronounced. Scold and Debonair Prince Berkut's fucking weapon. I don't remember what it's called because I don't remember much from that time period, honestly. But all of their weapon basically just one day dance would give 4 across the board to this character. I feel it should be something like either the character that they're supported with or the character nearest to them should also get those stats. And then when they dance, would also give them the stats also, just to make sure, you know. This would go and mitigate the problem that most of the dancing weapon have of just being like, oh yeah, thanks for buffing me when it's too late. Which is kind of the problem that most of the other dancing weapon have. They're good for using in tandem with tanks, but otherwise they tend to be just, why do you exist? And that's kind of the problem. As far as Nils is concerned, I'd say he's a decent unit, but he runs into one problem. And one pretty annoying problem. So first off, in comparison, there's Berkut. So he's basically Berkut, but overall less bulky. But also, he has a speed stat and a bit more health. Now, here's the problem, though. Nils is a dragon. Dragon killers are absolutely everywhere. That's a problem. That's a really big problem. Another thing to note is the fact that he's probably not going to go out of his pref, which means you cannot refine, which therefore means you don't have a whole lot of health. So, even his B slot becomes a bit less good as a result, because 45 HP versus 50. Yeah. So it kind of becomes a contest of, will I use this Power Crafty Kami, which is super good, or will I, you know, just give that up so I can actually use the B slot? It's overall very, very weird. But, see, there's two problems. Berkut has a super boon in res, and then you can actually take a pref and refine it to whatever thing, and then you have 37-32. So overall, he's just completely superior to Nils, unless he changes pref. Not pref, but weapon. Which, losing his pref is not good. It's actually just a really bad idea in general. And therefore you're not going to do that, because that's stupid. The other thing is the fact that Berkut is not a dragon, so he does not have to deal with dragon killers, which is good because dancers typically want to be bulky so they can actually just, you know, support by dancing while still being in the danger zone. Because if you can be in the danger zone, you can basically help people survive. You can block them from attacking the unit, for example, and therefore, you know, allowing your unit to survive as a result. So if you're bulky, it tends to be helpful. But Nils, while bulky, is a dragon, and dragon killers are too common. If there's no dragon killers, though, I do think he's slightly better than Berkut until you add another thing to the mix. The other problem here right? The other problem is that while, yes, he is better offensively and defensively, not defensively, offensively but not defensively, but although technically you can make the case that he's better defensively also because of the fact that he can prevent follow-up a lot more consistently than Berkut can. Berkut can be supported by Brave Lucina. Nils cannot be supported by Brave Lucina. The fact of the matter is, if you run a slaying lance on Berkut with Death Tactic and Bonfire, combo this into Brave Lucina, yeah, I think you can kind of see where I'm going with this. You'll typically be able to have, with Attack Tactic, 59 attack, possibly even more with double drive attack, up to, you know, what would that be? 50, 56, 59. Yeah, it's 59 attack and at its best 65 attack. With Bonfire proccing an extra 21 damage and typically even being able to one-shot certain threats. Which overall makes him, 1, not have any weaknesses, 2, better at dealing with enemies if needed. And that right here is kind of the reason why I do think Berkut is overall better. That said, Berkut is a seasonal, and that means it's really annoying to merge. Still a very, very good unit. I would definitely use Berkut a lot more than Nils personally. But Nils' weapon is a very, very, very good niche, regardless. Another thing to note for the future is the fact that Ninian might actually get Frost Breath. I mean, she's literally an ice dragon as well. Would be kind of odd for her to get any pref that is not that. But another thing to note is that she might also get a Resplendent alt. Now, Resplendent alts kind of make sense. Ninian is a very important character and is basically just the... well, let's just put it this way. Azura is a good value Ninian. So her getting a Resplendent alt would be very, very normal. Not to mention, I kind of don't really like the way Ninian looks. I want Fuzzy Choco to draw her personally. The main thing I don't like about the way Ninian looks is the fact that she looks way too young, but that's just the way I feel like. Either way, the reason why Nils' stat line is the way it is purely because Ninian is probably going to get a Resplendent alt. Because look at this. This is Ninian with a Resplendent alt stat up. Do you see how similar the stats are? Same HP, same def, 1 more speed, 5 more res, and like 4 less HP. 4 less attack, sorry. This is also considering the 10 Dragon Flowers, so, you know. It's, yeah. Kind of surprising, honestly. Either way, though, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. Whenever that's gonna come up. And, yeah. Overall, this is literally 15 BST she would gain, essentially. Considering the Dragon Flower difference and the Resplendent alt. That's 15 points of stats. But yeah, the stat line are very similar from one to the other. So I feel like Frost Breath is most likely also going to become a thing on Ninian. But this is more so, please take this with a grain of salt because I'm not so sure about this. I feel like that's probably going to happen, but we don't know until it happens. Anyway, as far as builds are concerned, this is what I would be rolling with. You can change his pref, but again, if you change his pref, there's not much difference between him or Ninian, even now. Hell, you can actually compare him to Azura at that point. And that's not exactly a comparison I want to make. Set on the left is definitely more of a support role. Even Polstai is only there just to deal with stuff like Ophelia, which are very frustrating to deal with. Ophelia and Sonya, actually. Honestly, I don't understand why it's only on even turns. It should be every turn. But that's just the way I look at it. Especially considering you need to have more active HP, not max HP, than the enemy. Which, that's iffy already. But, you know. Set on the right is definitely more of a bulky set. This is typically... Honestly, those two sets are kind of similar to what I run on my own Olivia. Except for the weapon, I use Safeguard. Though I'm going to give her Mirror Blade at one point. But that's a story for another time. I literally have 200 feathers right now. I cannot do that, so... But yeah. Overall, this is how I would build them. Definitely more on the support side or on the survival side. Honestly though, Nils has too much attack for his own good. I do really feel like... I really do feel like at the end of the day, whenever Ninian gets a Resplendent ult, I would prefer using Ninian over him. No offense to anyone that liked Nils, but Ninian overall would do roughly the same. And my Ninian is also +4, so, you know. And now for the crown jewel of the banner, we have Layla. Which is a unit I kind of wanted to +10, and then I kind of decided against it for only the reason of summons are fucking awful nowadays. But, I mean, you know this if you've been on my Discord at this point. My luck with summoning is atrocious. I get literally something like 3 leaf and 1.1k orbs when the average is almost 6. What? Or I go for Lucina, where the average would be 6 and 1200 orbs, and I get only 4. My luck with this game is horrendous. I want to have Threaten Attack Death for Gemkey. Got to 4.75%. Here's a kill. The worst blue unit of the entire pool at 5-star. Yeah, thanks, dude. The best 5-star exclusive. Woo boy! Then I get to 4.25 and I get Petra, which is more or less the same for me. But at least it was a new character, so... At least in that case, I was not as bitter, and I do like Petra as far as Treehouse is concerned. But yeah. Overall, this is a really good unit. The weapon is the main thing, but the stat line is also another thing. I do feel like she has too much speed, though. The way the weapon works is it's basically Swift Sparrow 2.5. You get 5 attack and speed if you initiate. This part does not rely on anything. It's just 5 attack and speed if you initiate. And if you initiate with a ally supported character, which means it does not do a thing in AR Def or Arena, which is good. I actually like this because it makes it a bit less cancer to deal with stuff. But if she initiates with basically her boyfriend within 2 space, she will teleport with it. In other words, the reason why she has life in Def 4 is because she'll typically be the one to attack from the front line and then swap into a tank. This is really good if you combo her into an AoE set. More on that later. So, This weapon is very good, and it also blocks any chance of counter-attacking, which makes it even more annoying to deal with. The fire sweep effect, just as well as the teleportation effect, will not work against you, thankfully, so it's not actually cancer to deal with. So now, let's talk about comparison. There's really only one comparison you can make, and that's Soph. And Soph can do a lot of things more or less in the same way that Layla can. The only things that Layla can do that Soph can do is, well, there's one in particular, but I'm gonna wait on that one. And then the other one would be the weapon, obviously. As far as AoE is concerned, she is a better AoE user than Soph ever will be. And she's also pretty good to give movement to an armored unit, because if she always teleports with the support unit, if the support unit is an armored unit, that's really good. It gives you an extra way to get out of danger. And that's pretty welcomed. So there's that, but if you're going for something like a broadleaf set, then you're typically going to be doing more or less the same thing as Soph, if not worse. You see, while they do have 36 attack on both cases, and I honestly should have just showcased the set at plus 10 with flowers, Soph can get 10 flowers, and Layla can only get 5. I know what people say whenever I do the 10 flowers versus 5 flowers combo. Oh, but Jay, no one gives 10 flowers to one unit. Okay, if you're stingy with your flowers, you typically will not give 5 full flowers to Layla because that's too expensive. You will, however, give 5 flowers to Soph because that's fucking nothing. It's like 150 dragon flowers for one across the board instead of 600. So yeah. Anyway, let's talk with the first sets. Set on the left is very obvious. It's just a flashing blade set. You have to understand, Life and Death is completely safe to run, because if you're within 2 space of your ally support, the enemy cannot hit you back whatsoever. You have a fire sweep effect. And even if he can, 28 death is not that bad. You can actually take a hit pretty easily. Either way, setting up the AoE is not hard. And once it's set up, you have 70 attack backing you up. And once you're in combat, 75 actually. So that's pretty good. And with an AoE behind 70 attack of fucking power, well, let's just put it this way. You fight something with literally, let's say 50 defense. Well, you're doing 30 damage with the AoE itself and then 25 damage a hit because of the 5 attack being added in combat afterward. That's 55 damage, dude. 50 death basically dies if they don't have 56 or more health. I don't think I have to explain about what happens to anything else that ends up having more or less death than 50. As for the set on the right, this is more so a debuffing set. This is really good in tandem with, oh hey, wouldn't you know it, Matthew? Or Saizo for that matter. Because it allows you to KO something with the AoE, and then just swap into Matthew or Saizo, and then everyone will have lost basically 7 across the board. Which means that Saizo will basically, if he's buffed by 6 across the board, get 13 across the board. If it's Matthew, well, he's getting 35 damage increase. I think you get the idea. It's overall really good to combo into his boyfriend, or her boyfriend rather, or her other boyfriend from Mashido, because this is literally looking like Kagero, and Kagero was in a relationship with Saizo. Wow, who would have known? Anyway, random facts aside, this is the other set I was talking about. You can change the weapon to a different one, it's really up to you. The idea here is very simple. This is something that Soph cannot do. Why can't Soph do this? Well, Soph cannot use ploys. The thing is, Layla has a base 26 res, but it's also a super boon. So you end up with 30 res. At plus 10, that's 34 res, and if you go res plus, that's 37. With 30 impact, it essentially means you hit 43 def and res with buffs. If attack ploy is involved, you have 48 def and 48 res. That makes you extremely bulky on the initiative, but also, with def ploy, well, attack and def ploy plus broadleaf fan, you're getting 15 damage from those ploys. I don't think there's a whole lot of dagger units that have the res to ploy. I believe there's Felicia, and there's Kaze, and I think that's kind of it. So yeah, Layla actually has kind of a niche with this. This is essentially 15 damage with Broadleaf Fan, which means you have 79 attack on initiation with this. 79 attack with 48 def and res. And your speed is at 51. As for why the heck are you running Astra? This is because you're using something like a Blade Tome. And you don't get the cooldown +1 that Blade Tome gives you. So with Special Spiral, you basically end up at 2 cooldown, which means you get hit, proc Astra, which allows you to kill. Since you have the power behind you of 79 attack with no combat triangle to take into account, this is overall really good. If you run something like a Barb Shuriken, you might want to run a low attack def instead of Special Spiral, and then run something like Iceberg, because it's going to be too cooldown at that point. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about this. Boy, this video was an hour long and it did not feel like an hour long. Hopefully this enlightened you in some ways. Overall, this was a pretty solid banner, honestly. Unit choice was a bit shaky with Fiora, but oh well. I do wish Raph had a pref, but oh well. It's kind of just what it is. Either way, I don't really have anything bad to say about this banner. Every unit are at least decent or unique. It's just Fiora actually has a lot of really hard competition, but that is to be expected. If you're a lance flyer without a pref, you tend to be very iffy overall. But yeah. With that said, I hope to see you all on Discord or in the comments. Have a nice rest of the day, everyone. See ya.